Hello, my name is Andrea Radford, and my research topic is on the impact of commuter rail systems on residential property values. My research question is, will the addition of a commuter rail system have a positive impact on property values? Why is this study important? Well, first of all, let me tell you where I'm located, so it'll make sense. Currently, I reside in the city of Raleigh, which is part of Wake County, and in the Wake County Transit Plan, there was a proposed light rail system that ran from Chapel Hill to Durham, and this part of the project failed. The failed project cost taxpayers just over $158 million. Of that $158 million, $20,000 was spent on a study from the American Public Transportation Association. In the study, in this report that they put together, the report told why this project was a failure. The findings in the report were failure to secure agreements with Duke University and other key stakeholders and the current legislature. Also, the American Public Transportation Association stated that the board members of Go Triangle did not bring subject matter expertise to the board, nor were the members a reflection of the diversity in the community. So why does this matter for this research? Well, earlier this year, the Union Station opened in downtown Raleigh, which is part of the commuter rail system that is being proposed in the transit plan. The total cost of the project was just over $110 million for the Union Station. Part of it was grant money from the federal government, and other parts were provided. Other funding was provided locally and by the state. With that amount of money that has already been put towards the success of this project and or failure of part of the project, it's important to shed light on the promise of public transport networks for supporting the sustainability of the city's future development and potential for planning future rail transit investments. This study is important for both planners and policymakers who are looking to apply land value capture policy as a potential funding mechanism for the operation and construction of rail transit projects. It's useful ensuring land value capture policy captures the actual changes in land values caused by a given project. Land value uplift is an important category of information for potential developers and homebuyers who might want to target land around rail transit stations. Light rail, metro, and other urban rail transit systems can play a role in improving the attractiveness and quality of urban public transport. They can influence the attractiveness of locations near the stations and improve accessibility for these locations. Currently, the city of Raleigh has a bus transit as a form of public transportation. The bus runs through downtown Raleigh, and I think it runs through all 12 municipalities. I'll have to double check that. I'm not real sure. This slide just shows the part of the rail system that failed. As you can see here, circled in red, that is part of the light rail system that failed from Chapel Hill to Durham. It would go right beside Duke University. Here is a study. I chose Salt Lake City because their commuter rail system has been open for 11 years. So it's fairly new. Originally, I was going to compare 4 different cities, but getting the data for all these areas took a long time. So like I said, this commuter system has been open for 11 years. In 2001, an alternative analysis identified commuter rail in the north-south corridor as a preferred alternative for transit improvements. The project entered preliminary engineering in 2003 and into final design in 2005. Funding was secured in 2006, and the project opened for service in 2008. And in 2012, they opened up more stations. Now there's a total of 9 stations for the Frontrunner line in Salt Lake City. The project extends over 44 miles, and now, like I said, it has 9 stations. But all but one station offer park and ride lots that provide a total of 3,400 spaces. Ridership for the line has grown steadily, with weekly averages in 2009 at 4,700. In 2010 they were 5,000, and in 2011-2012 ridership was up 53%. But how did the rail affect property values near the study areas? As you can see on the screen shows where the study area is. Most studies employ a hedonic pricing model to capture property value effect of rail transit, using residential transaction prices or apartment rent prices as the dependent variable. In cases where residential transaction price data are unavailable due to confidentiality, asking prices are normally used. In my study, I used asking prices found on Zillow. There have been empirical studies since the early 1990s that show the impact of rail transit systems on residential property values. These studies provide researchers with ample of evidence for observing how rail transit systems have affected residential property values. Most studies have indicated that proximity to transit stations have a positive and statistically significant effect on property values. For this study, I used a 1-mile buffer around rail stations, since many scholars assert it is a reasonable walking distance for transit riders. Usually it takes anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes for someone to walk to the rail station in a 1-mile buffer zone. The method to determine the selection of which block groups are included or excluded in the study areas is the centroid containment method. So using the centroid containment method, if the block groups, as you can see in blue, and the centroid points are in red, so if the centroid point was within the buffer zone, the 2 red circles that have been merged, then it's included. If the centroid point was outside of the buffer zone, then the block group was excluded. Since the evolution of spatial analysis technology allows researchers to consider spatial interactions, this allows impact of rail transit to vary over a geographical area. This study uses geographically weighted regression method to capture land value uplift around commuter rail stations. So what were my findings? My findings indicate that there was a statistical significance in residential property value in a 1-mile radius of a rail transit station. I also noticed through my study that I needed to add a hedonic pricing model to my research paper. This way I can indicate other factors that may have been a result, other factors that could have caused the uplift in residential pricing, such as the number of bedrooms, maybe the total living area, and the type of residence, as far as like single family residence, multifamily residence, condo, apartment. These may play a factor in that as well. Also, I want to mention that although in this study, the commuter rail transit, proximity to a commuter rail transit station had a positive effect, sometimes it has a negative effect due to externalities such as air pollution, noise, traffic congestion, and visual clutter effects, which are typically found around transit stations, which really surprised me with these results, because the location close to a rail station had a positive impact on the property values. A lot of times, due to the visual clutter effect, they have a negative impact. So at this time, I want to thank everybody for listening, and I look forward to reading your responses. Thank you.